Welcome, traveler. Tonight, we step into a world of myth. Above ancient Greece, the skies stretch wide, painted with starlight. This is the realm where gods and mortals share the earth. Thunder answers prayers, and prophecies shape the path of kings. Among all voices, one was treasured most, the Oracle of Delphi. Her words guided rulers, comforted wanderers, and revealed hidden tomorrows. But then, her voice faded into silence. No thunder, no riddle, no prophecy, only quiet. Pilgrims climbed the marble steps, offerings in hand, hearts heavy with questions. They entered the chamber. The oracle sat still, eyes closed. Her lips did not move. The sacred fire gave no sign. Stillness filled the air, deeper than words. Whispers spread across temples and marketplaces alike. Priests exchanged uneasy glances. Mortals trembled in doubt. Even the gods leaned close, listening from Olympus. What did this silence mean? Was it warning or wisdom? None could say, not even Zeus, king of the gods. And so our story begins not with thunder, but with mystery. A journey into silence, where Zeus himself must listen and learn. The story begins not with thunder, but with silence. Silence so deep, it stretches across mountains, through valleys, and into the hearts of mortals. At Delphi, pilgrims gather at the sacred temple of Apollo. They carry honey, olive branches, and coins, each step guided by hope. In the past, the oracle spoke riddles that revealed truths and shaped the fate of kings. Her voice was the bridge between mortals and the will of the gods. But this time was different. The first pilgrim entered the chamber of the oracle. She sat upon her high tripod in the center of the room. The fire of Apollo flickered. The smell of laurel leaves filled the air. Her eyes were closed, as if listening to a voice far away. The pilgrim bowed, waited, and asked if his crops would grow. But the oracle did not answer. Her lips remained still. Her breath was calm. Only the soft crackle of fire filled the chamber. The pilgrim spoke again, louder. Still, nothing. She sat wrapped in silence, older than words. One by one, others entered with questions. A mother asked if her son would return from war. A traveler sought guidance to find his way. A messenger of kings asked about treaties yet to come. But the oracle gave no answer. Her silence was complete. Word spread quickly down marble steps and through Delphi's streets. She does not speak, the pilgrims whispered. Priests of Apollo lit incense, sang hymns, prayed for her voice, but nothing changed. The oracle's silence remained. For centuries, her words had never failed. Now, for the first time, there was only emptiness. Some believed disaster was near. Others whispered the gods were angry. A few thought silence itself was a hidden message. That night, torches flickered uneasily under the stars. Prayers rose, not for answers, but for the oracle's voice to return. High above, on Mount Olympus, the gods noticed. From his golden throne, Zeus gazed at Delphi with eyes like lightning. Even he, Lord of the skies, did not know why she was silent. Hera leaned toward him. The people grow restless, she warned. Athena suggested the silence might be a test. Apollo said nothing. His face was unreadable. Zeus listened, thoughtful. He did not dismiss the silence. He knew the oracle's words were more than prophecy. They were hope. They were faith. Now mortals wandered in uncertainty, heavier than fear. At Delphi, pilgrims kept arriving, still bringing offerings. They entered with questions, left with only quiet. Some wept. Some grew angry. Some bowed, believing silence itself was divine. And Zeus watched. He summoned no thunder, commanded no winds. He only thought, weighing a decision. If her voice had truly vanished, he must seek the reason. Not with storms, but with wisdom. Not with might, but with patience. And so, the silence spread across Greece. It unsettled mortals. It stirred the heavens. But this silence was not emptiness. It was an invitation Zeus could not ignore. Far above the mortal world stands Mount Olympus, crowned with silver clouds. Its peaks gleam with light that never fades. its halls echo with divine voices. Here, the first whispers reached the throne of Zeus. The gods had heard of the oracle's silence. News carried by prayers travels quickly, and no prayer goes unheard on Olympus. At first, it was only murmurs, a ripple of unease. But soon the whispers grew into a storm of questions. Why had the oracle fallen silent? Was it rebellion from the fates? Or had Apollo withdrawn his blessing? In the grand hall, the gods assembled beneath golden pillars. Hera, seated beside Zeus, spoke first. "The people grow restless," she said. "Without prophecy, kings will falter, wars may rise." Athena folded her arms, her gaze sharp with thought. "Perhaps this silence is not absence, but a lesson," she said. "Mortals lean too heavily upon the oracle. They must learn to decide without her voice." Poseidon struck his trident against the floor. The sound rolled like thunder over the sea. "Or perhaps it is neglect. If Apollo cannot guard his oracle, then Greece will suffer." Apollo remained silent for a long time. Finally, his golden hair gleaming, he spoke. "I have not withdrawn from her. She sits beneath my gaze. Yet even I cannot hear her voice." The hall stirred with unease. If Apollo himself could not explain, then what power had stilled the oracle? Hermes leaned forward with a sly smile. "Perhaps this is a trick of the fates," he said. "They weave as they wish, and even we are threads in their loom." Artemis frowned. "The fates answer to no one, not even Zeus. If they are silent, it is for a reason." Ares laughed, rough as iron. "Let mortals live without prophecy. Let them fight and learn strength through struggle." Hera's eyes flashed. "Foolish pride. Mortals need guidance, not chaos." The voices rose, crashing like waves against stone. Yet Zeus, upon his throne of storms, did not silence them. He listened, stern and thoughtful, his mind far away. Finally, lightning flickered in his eyes. His voice was deep and steady. "The oracle's silence is no small matter," he said. "Mortals stumble in darkness when her voice does not guide them. And when mortals falter, heaven and earth tremble with them." The hall fell quiet. All eyes turned to him. "This silence is not to be met with thunder or force," he continued. "If even Apollo cannot hear her, no command of mine will break her stillness." Athena leaned forward. "Then, what will you do, father?" "I will go to Delphi," said Zeus, "not as king of the gods, but as a seeker. I will walk as a traveler among mortals to learn what truth lies in this silence." A murmur passed through the hall. Hera asked softly, "Will you walk alone?" "Yes," said Zeus. "The path of silence must be met in silence. Too many voices will drown the answer." Apollo bowed his head. "If you find what even I cannot, then perhaps her stillness has a purpose beyond my sight." And so, the decision was made. The gods dispersed, some doubtful, some hopeful. Zeus rose from his throne, the weight of storm and sky upon him. In his heart there was no anger, only resolve. For he knew this silence was not ordinary. It was deep enough to touch even the king of gods. And as he prepared to leave Olympus, whispers followed him, soft, uncertain, filled with both fear and faith. The silence of the oracle had unsettled the world below. Now it stirred the heavens above. And soon, Zeus himself would walk between them, seeking answers not in thunder, but in quiet. The halls of Olympus grew quiet again, the voices of the gods fading into silence. Zeus did not rest. His mind lingered on the silence of Delphi. Thunder could move mountains, but it could not awaken a silent voice. Prophecy was not born from storms. It was born from wisdom and vision. The oracle's silence was deeper than any command could reach. Zeus chose not to roar, but to walk. He would leave Olympus, not as a god, but as a traveler. No crown of lightning, no scepter of storms, only a plain cloak, an olive staff, and a heart ready to listen. Hera watched him, her gaze steady. "Take care," she said. "The silence may change you more than you change it." Zeus smiled softly. "Then let it change me." At nightfall, he set aside his crown and scepter. He left Olympus quietly, without thunder or storm. He stepped into the mortal world as dawn touched the hills. The air was cool, filled with the scent of olives and earth. Villagers stirred, lighting fires, carrying water, tending fields. No one knew the stranger in the plain cloak was the king of gods. Zeus walked slowly, feeling the soil beneath his sandals. He passed farmers, women, children, each carrying questions. "The oracle is silent," said one man. "How will we know the harvest?" Another whispered, "Perhaps the gods have abandoned us." A woman answered, "Perhaps the oracle only rests. Even voices tire." Zeus listened. Their fears carried truth. They did not seek escape. They sought hope. That evening, he rested beneath an olive tree. A shepherd boy approached, curious. "Traveler," the boy asked, "what do you think of Delphi's silence?" Zeus replied gently, "What do you think it means?" The boy shrugged. "My father says it's dangerous. My mother says it's holy. I only know it feels like the forest when it grows too quiet. Something is coming." Zeus smiled. "Sometimes quiet speaks more than words." The boy nodded and returned to his flock. Zeus leaned back beneath the stars. Perhaps silence was not absence, but a doorway. Perhaps in Delphi, truth waited not in thunder, but in stillness. His resolve deepened. He would walk the roads, listen to mortals, gather their hopes, and when he reached Delphi, he would seek not with command, but with patience. For once, the king of gods walked a path not paved with storms. It was a path paved with silence. The road to Delphi wound through valleys and mountains, a ribbon of dust and stone. Zeus walked humbly, clothed as a traveler, sandals striking earth step by step. Villages dotted the way, alive with whispers of the oracle's silence. In taverns, travelers muttered. At wells, women exchanged rumors. Farmers at field edges spoke with worry. "Without the oracle, how shall kings choose?" one asked. "Without her, wars will rise," another said. But some voices carried hope. "Perhaps it is time we stand on our own," a woman murmured. Zeus listened. He spoke no counsel, revealed no crown. He was there to hear, to feel the weight of their longing. At dusk, he stopped at a roadside inn. The fire crackled, bread passed, wine poured. A storyteller rose, hands lifted. "The oracle no longer speaks, but silence is its own omen." The crowd stirred uneasily. "What greater thing could silence mean?" one asked. The storyteller smiled. "Sometimes, silence is not absence, but a question." Zeus sat quietly, firelight in his eyes. The words rang true. Silence was alive. Morning came. He continued toward Delphi. The mountains grew taller, peaks brushing the clouds. Olive groves gave way to stone cliffs. Pilgrims walked the same road, offerings heavy in their hands. Zeus walked beside them, just another traveler. Some spoke with hope. Others kept silent. A young woman carrying laurel turned to him. "Stranger, do you believe the oracle will speak again?" Zeus paused, then answered gently. "Voices fall silent, but truth does not vanish. We must learn to hear it in other ways." She considered, then smiled faintly. "Perhaps you are right." They walked together until the road split. She turned to her village. He walked toward Delphi. Days passed, the journey long. At night, he gazed at the stars, silence pressing against him like a friend. It was no longer an enemy. It was a teacher. One morning, Delphi appeared before him. The city rested on Mount Parnassus, temples gleaming in dawn light. Pilgrims crowded the marble steps, faces filled with hope and fear. Offerings filled the courtyards. Though no answer came, Zeus paused at the city's edge, cloak brushing dust. He looked to Apollo's temple, columns rising to the heavens. Here silence had taken root. Here stillness waited. He breathed deeply. This was no place for thunder. It was a place for listening. The sun rose higher. Zeus stepped into Delphi. He entered not as ruler, but as seeker. No crown, no storm, only questions. The road had led him here to discover, not declare. The temple doors opened. Silence deepened. It had been waiting for Zeus. The temple of Apollo rose tall, white against the slopes of Mount Parnassus. Laurel trees swayed, their leaves whispering secrets in the wind. Pilgrims crowded the courtyard, offerings laid out in careful rows, baskets of figs, vases of oil, wreaths of flowers, small statues of gold. Each gift was a prayer, a plea for the oracle to speak again. Zeus walked among them, unseen, dusty as a traveler. The ground carried centuries of prayer, a weight pressed into stone. Here, gods and mortals had touched. Here, prophecy once flowed. Now there was nothing, only silence. The air itself felt heavy, woven with stillness. Priests moved uneasily, some reassuring, others doubtful. A young priest held laurel leaves in trembling hands. "The oracle rests," he told the crowd. "We must trust her silence." Some nodded in faith. Others muttered in doubt. Zeus lifted his eyes to the inner chamber. There, the Pythia once spoke. Visions shaping kingdoms. Now the chamber echoed with quiet. Inside, torches flickered. Laurel smoke filled the air. The oracle sat upon the tripod, hands calm on her knees. Her eyes closed, her breath steady, her face serene. The sacred bowl shimmered faintly beside her. The holy fire burned low, giving no sign. She was not broken. She was simply still. A priest whispered to Zeus, "Stranger, you should not linger." Zeus asked softly, "How long has she been silent?" "Many days," the priest replied, his voice weary. "At first we thought it was brief, but silence did not end. She breathes. She waits. Yet she speaks no word. Not even Apollo's voice moves through her." Zeus nodded, his thoughts deep. Apollo's light was faint, but present. Yet still no voice came. The oracle's stillness was not despair, but something hidden. The silence was not empty. It was waiting. Zeus sat quietly at the edge of the chamber. He summoned no thunder. He called no fire. He only listened. Hours passed. Pilgrims came and went. Priests carried offerings. The holy flame flickered. Still, the silence held. Yet Zeus began to sense a rhythm. Delphi itself seemed to breathe. He closed his eyes and let the quiet surround him. For the first time, he listened not as a god, but as a soul. In the silence, he heard something beyond words. A whisper not of sound, but of presence. The oracle silence said, "Wait." Zeus opened his eyes. The chamber unchanged, but he felt its prophecy was not gone. This was a passage, a turning of the page. He bowed his head toward the still oracle. "The silence is not your defeat," he murmured. "It is your message." The priest looked at him in confusion. Zeus only smiled faintly. He stepped back into the light of the courtyard. The people waited, their faces anxious, their voices hushed. The silence was not the end. It was the beginning. With the winds brushing his cloak, Zeus left the temple steps, not discouraged, not afraid, but resolved. The oracle's silence was not emptiness. It was a doorway, and Zeus was ready to walk through. The temple of Apollo rose tall, white against the slopes of Mount Parnassus. Laurel trees swayed, their leaves whispering secrets in the wind. Pilgrims crowded the courtyard, offerings laid out in careful rows, baskets of figs, vases of oil, wreaths of flowers, small statues of gold. Each gift was a prayer, a plea for the oracle to speak again. Zeus walked among them, unseen, dusty as a traveler. The ground carried centuries of prayer, a weight pressed into stone. Here, gods and mortals had touched. Here, prophecy once flowed. Now there was nothing, only silence. The air itself felt heavy, woven with stillness. Priests moved uneasily, some reassuring, others doubtful. A young priest held laurel leaves in trembling hands. "The oracle rests," he told the crowd. "We must trust her silence." Some nodded in faith. Others muttered in doubt. Zeus lifted his eyes to the inner chamber. There, the Pythia once spoke. Visions shaping kingdoms. Now the chamber echoed with quiet. Inside, torches flickered. Laurel smoke filled the air. The oracle sat upon the tripod, hands calm on her knees. Her eyes closed, her breath steady, her face serene. The sacred bowl shimmered faintly beside her. The holy fire burned low, giving no sign. She was not broken. She was simply still. A priest whispered to Zeus, "Stranger, you should not linger." Zeus asked softly, "How long has she been silent?" "Many days," the priest replied, his voice weary. "At first we thought it was brief, but silence did not end. She breathes, she waits, yet she speaks no word. Not even Apollo's voice moves through her." Zeus nodded, his thoughts deep. Apollo's light was faint, but present. Yet still no voice came. The oracle's stillness was not despair, but something hidden. The silence was not empty. It was waiting. Zeus sat quietly at the edge of the chamber. He summoned no thunder. He called no fire. He only listened. Hours passed. Pilgrims came and went. Priests carried offerings. The holy flame flickered. Still the silence held. Yet Zeus began to sense a rhythm. Delphi itself seemed to breathe. He closed his eyes and let the quiet surround him. For the first time, he listened not as a god, but as a soul. In the silence, he heard something beyond words. A whisper not of sound, but of presence. The oracle's silence said, "Wait." Zeus opened his eyes. The chamber unchanged. But he felt it prophecy was not gone. This was a passage, a turning of the page. He bowed his head toward the still oracle. "The silence is not your defeat," he murmured. "It is your message." The priest looked at him in confusion. Zeus only smiled faintly. He stepped back into the light of the courtyard. The people waited, their faces anxious, their voices hushed. The silence was not the end. It was the beginning. With the winds brushing his cloak, Zeus left the temple steps. Not discouraged, not afraid, but resolved. The oracle's silence was not emptiness. It was a doorway, and Zeus was ready to walk through. The sun dipped low as Zeus reached the valley's edge. Golden light stretched across fields, glinting off rooftops of a quiet village. It was no palace, but it carried dignity, born of survival. Generations had trusted the oracle, but now they lived in shadow. Zeus walked disguised as a weary traveler. His cloak was worn, his sandals dusty, his steps steady. He carried no lightning, no crown, only silence. The villagers eyed him warily, strangers rare in uneasy times. An older woman stepped forward, her eyes strong despite her years. "Traveler," she said, "you seek the oracle, but she does not speak." Zeus replied gently, "I seek what you seek, the truth of her silence." She guided him to the square where others gathered, faces lined with worry, hands clutching offerings of hope. Her voice rose. "We wait, we pray, yet the oracle is silent." Murmurs spread, some nodding, some despairing. A young man spoke bitterly. "Without her, we are blind." Another asked, "Are we abandoned after all these years?" Zeus felt the weight of their words. They were not kings, but ordinary souls, lost without guidance. He raised his voice. "Silence is not abandonment. It is waiting." The villagers stirred, uneasy, doubting. The elder asked, "Why do the gods let us wander in fear?" Zeus's eyes softened. "Sometimes silence teaches more than words. Sometimes the gods ask you to listen to your own strength." The crowd fell hushed, exchanging uncertain glances. The young man frowned. "We are mortals. What strength do we have?" Zeus answered gently. "You sow seeds, raise children, keep fires alive. That strength is yours." The oracle guided, but was never your only light. The elder woman's gaze brightened with a spark of thought. Zeus turned to them all. "Silence is not curse, but opening, a chance to rise, to choose, to walk without fear." The murmurs quieted, as if a burden lifted. The elder spoke softly. "Perhaps silence asks us to remember." Zeus bowed his head. "You are not abandoned. You are invited." The people listened, not certain, but steadier. A child tugged at the elder's sleeve. "Will she speak again?" The woman smiled. "Perhaps. But until then, we will live and choose." Zeus felt warmth at her words. The lesson had begun. He bowed to the villagers, his presence faintly glowing. "Hold to hope. The silence is not an end, but a new song." He turned and left, twilight stretching shadows behind him. The villagers watched, hearts not healed, but stronger. As Zeus walked, he knew silence was for gods and mortals alike. It was teaching them courage. It was teaching them to listen. It was teaching them that even in stillness, there is strength. Night fell over Delphi, the village quiet beneath the stars. Fires burned low. Prayers left at the feet of a silent oracle. Within the temple, shadows clung to marble walls. Zeus returned quietly, unseen by mortal eyes. He entered the chamber where the oracle still Saturday. Her breath was steady, her silence unbroken. Torches burned faintly, their flames wavering in weight. Zeus lowered himself to the ground. He watched the holy fire, small and fragile. Within its glow, he saw a hidden shimmer. The flame pulsed with a quiet rhythm, like a heartbeat. It was not ordinary fire, it was alive. The silence was not empty. It was sheltering something. Something sacred, hidden deep within. Zeus closed his eyes, letting the rhythm move through him. The flame was not dying, it was waiting. In the stillness, Apollo's presence flickered faintly. Even he was silent, guarding a secret too great to speak. Zeus whispered, "The oracle shelters a truth not yet ready." The fire flared gently, as if in answer. He thought of mortals longing for prophecy. He thought of gods restless for control. All demanded answers now. But wisdom was not born in haste. The flame reminded him truth waits for its time. Zeus placed his hand above the fire. He did not command it. He honored it. Its warmth touched his palm, strong and steady. The oracle's silence was a covenant, not a failure. It was a promise of truth yet to come. He turned to her still figure. Her silence glowed with quiet strength. She was not lost. She was guarding the flame. Zeus bowed. "Your silence is strength, not weakness." For a moment, her lips seemed to curve faintly. The chamber was dim, yet alive with hidden power. Her role had changed. She was now guardian of silence. And in that silence, the flame endured. Zeus stepped outside beneath the stars. The night air was cool, the sky endless. He whispered, "Not all power is thunder. Some lies in quiet flame." Winds stirred, carrying his words across the valley. Laurel trees rustled like soft applause. Zeus descended the steps, heart lighter than before. He carried no prophecy, no riddle, no command. Yet he carried something greater understanding. Silence was not absence, but presence. It sheltered the hidden flame of truth. The people would wait. The gods might grumble, but the flame was safe until its day arrived. Until then, silence would speak. It would guide both gods and mortals alike, not with words, but with patience, courage, and trust. The dawn rose slowly over Delphi, touching the marble with gold. The temple remained silent, but beyond its gates, life stirred. Mortals gathered, not to hear the oracle, but to hear each other. Farmers, shepherds, scholars, and elders filled the square. Their faces bore questions, but their voices carried resolve. At first, hesitation hung in the air. For generations, the oracle had guided every step of life. Without her words, the world seemed uncertain, like a ship without stars. Yet slowly, mortals began to share what they knew. A farmer spoke of soil, a shepherd of the winds. A scholar recalled the patterns of the stars. Wisdom rose, not from one voice, but from many. Zeus stood unseen at the edge, listening. These were not prophecies, yet they held power. Collaboration wove mortal thought into something enduring. An elder with silver hair lifted her voice. "We cannot wait forever. We can choose our path." The square grew quiet, her words like a beacon, not a command, an invitation. Debates followed, heated and honest. Some wished to wait for Apollo's return. Others urged action, for life could not be delayed. Fields needed planting. Disputes needed settling. In the clamor, strength began to bloom. Silence became space for mortal voices to rise. Zeus felt a shift within himself. Mortals were not fragile. They were resilient. The flame in the temple had a reflection here. It burned in their courage, their willingness to decide. A shepherd raised his hand. If the gods are silent, perhaps it is trust. The thought rippled through the crowd. Trust lingered, a seed of understanding. Zeus wondered if silence was meant for them too. Not absence, but an invitation to grow. The council turned to action. Leaders were chosen for wisdom, not blood. Farmers promised to share harvests with the poor. Scholars pledged to teach children patience and letters. Elders vowed to guide with memory, not decree. Delphi had shaped its first council of mortals, born not from prophecy, but from silence. Zeus felt pride stir within him, not thunderous pride, but quiet, steady pride. "They are learning," he whispered to the wind. The wind carried his words across the square. A child looked up, sensing something beyond mortal voices. The council stretched long into the afternoon. Tired yet lighter, the people dispersed. They had not solved all, but they had found strength. Together, they could face uncertainty. Zeus turned toward the temple once more. The oracle still guarded her flame in silence. But silence no longer weighed heavily. It had become fertile ground. Mortals had found their voices, and in their voices, Zeus heard a new dawn. Twilight stretched over Delphi. The sky painted violet and rose. The square was quiet, filled with anticipation instead of fear. Yet not all hearts were calm. Doubt stirred among the people. Could mortals guide themselves without the oracle's voice? In the courtyard, villagers gathered in hushed voices. Farmers, artisans, and youths stood restless under silence. To them, silence was a song cut short. A man named Lysandros stood tall among them. His voice carried passion more than wisdom. "We cannot live in uncertainty," he cried. "The gods owe us answers. Silence is failure." The crowd stirred uneasily at his words. Had the gods turned their backs on humanity? Zeus listened unseen, steady yet watchful. "Doubt was as great a trial as thunder," Lysandros called out. "Let Zeus prove himself. If he is king, let him give us a sign." The crowd murmured, torn between fear and faith. Zeus felt their longing like a heavy wind. He could have answered with lightning and storm, but he chose stillness instead of thunder. He appeared cloaked in twilight's glow. The villagers gasped, silence falling over them. Zeus raised his hand, calm and steady. "You seek answers carved in fire and storm," he said. "But will thunder feed your fields? Will lightning guide your hearts?" Lysandros stood firm, though awe flickered in his eyes. "Without prophecy we are lost," he declared. "We need proof, not silence." Zeus's voice was patient, unshakable. "You are not lost. You are tested. Silence is not absence, but strength waiting. The gods have not abandoned you. The oracle guards a flame hidden in silence. You must walk together until its light returns." A young girl stepped forward timidly. "But what if we fail?" she asked softly. Zeus's gaze warmed with gentleness. "Then you will rise again," he answered. "Failure is not the end, it is growth." His words rippled through the villagers. Some wept, some breathed hope for the first time. Lysandros lowered his eyes, uncertain. "Then silence is a trial?" he whispered. Zeus nodded, his tone firm and clear. "Yes, a trial of doubt, revealing your strength." The square grew quiet once more. Not fear, not despair, but choice. Zeus lifted his gaze to the sky. "The flame waits. The oracle guards it. But you must choose how to walk the path." He faded into twilight, leaving them thoughtful. Some still doubted, some still feared. But seeds of courage had been planted. The trial of doubt had begun to shape them. Night fell again, and silence lingered, not as a void, but as a teacher. In silence, mortals faced the hardest question. Would they believe in their own strength? The village of Delphi woke in dawn's gentle light. The air carried pine, mist, and the faint stir of hope. For days, the people had lived in quiet reflection. The oracle's silence no longer felt like a curse. It had become a challenge to face and endure. Yet the trial was not over, only transformed. The oracle's shrine still lay hidden in the mountains. Its sacred flame, once brilliant, now flickered weakly. Without its glow, mortals struggled to believe. Zeus watched unseen as villagers gathered together. There was no anger, no desperate cries this time. Instead, determination filled the square like morning light. The silence had planted strength that now sought growth. A group prepared to climb to the sacred shrine. Among them was Lysandros, once proud in doubt. Now he walked humbled, steadied by silence. Beside him was Elara, a brave young girl. Her courage glowed brighter than her tender years. They climbed through forests where shadows stretched long. They crossed clear streams that sang with time's music. Each step carried weight, yet also unity. For the first time, mortals trusted one another. At last, they reached the Oracle Stone Temple. Its walls were weathered, tested by time and storms. The altar stood bare, save for a weak ember. It trembled faintly, fragile as a whispered breath. The villagers knelt, reverence guiding their silence. Some expected Zeus to ignite the flame himself, but Zeus remained hidden, waiting and watching. This flame was theirs to kindle, not his. Lysandros spoke first, voice softer than ever. In silence, I doubted, yet I see now. We ourselves are the sign we once demanded. Elara stepped forward, eyes fixed on the ember. Flames need breath, she whispered. Hope is breath. The villagers laid small gifts around the ember. An olive sprig, a cloth, a quiet prayer. Not from fear, but from chosen devotion. The flame shivered, then steadied, and grew. Its glow reached outward, touching their offerings. Warmth filled the temple, soft but undeniable. It was not thunder, but unity's miracle. Zeus revealed himself in the golden glow. His presence was calm, vast, like the sky. You have done what storms could not, he said. You have breathed life into silence itself. Elara's voice quivered, full of wonder. So the oracle is not gone, she asked. Zeus's smile was gentle as morning light. The oracle sleeps, but the flame remembers. In your unity, her strength awakens again. The villagers wept, not from sorrow, but joy. Zeus raised his hand in blessing, not command. The gods do not rule your hearts, he said. We only seek to guide your steps. The flame brightened, bathing the temple in gold. Its warmth spread, chasing every lingering shadow. Silence no longer pressed heavy on their souls. It was alive, carrying their own strength. Zeus turned to Lysandros with steady eyes. You demanded proof, and here it stands. Not mine, but yours, born of choice. Lysandros bowed low, humbled and renewed. Faith is not thunder, he said quietly. It is the spark we choose to tend. The villagers returned to Delphi with the flame. They carried light, but also a deeper truth. Silence had taught them to listen within. And in that listening, they found the divine. Zeus watched their steps, heart lighter than sky. For in their courage, he saw a new future. Gods and mortals would walk together as one, not through prophecy, but through unity and trust. The sun rose higher, and the flame blazed. No longer weak, it promised hope renewed. The people had faced silence and answered with light. Delphi stood beneath the quiet sky. Its people gathered once more. The rekindled flame glowed in the temple, steady and alive. It was no longer weak, but a beacon of hope. The villagers felt warmth rise within their own hearts. Yet one final moment lingered in the silence. The oracle had not spoken since her voice had gone still. Would she ever speak again, or was silence her gift? Zeus appeared, his form bright yet calm as morning. He gazed upon the flame and the waiting villagers. You have walked through silence, he told them gently. You have kindled light where shadows sought to reign. The people bowed, not in fear, but in gratitude. At the altar, the flame shifted and danced higher. A hush swept through Delphi, softer than breath. From within the fire came a voice, tender and strong. It was the oracle, speaking for the first time in days. Children of earth, she whispered, you have heard the truth. My voice is not the gift, it is your own. You have learned to walk with silence as your guide, and in doing so, you have found strength untold. Tears filled Elara's eyes as she clutched her hands. Lysandros bowed, his doubt burned away by flame. The villagers listened, not in fear, but in wonder. The oracle's voice flowed like a river, calm and sure. This is the last prophecy I will give, she said. No longer shall you wait for words carved in fate. From now on, prophecy is the choice you make. Walk together, kindle hope, and guard the flame within. Silence returned, not heavy, but whole. The flame burned brightly, steady as the Sunday. Zeus raised his hand, blessing both flame and people. "The oracle's silence is not an end," he said. "It is a beginning born from your courage." The villagers carried the words deep into their hearts. The prophecy was not spoken for gods alone. It was theirs to live, theirs to keep. Delphi would no longer wait for thunder to guide them. They would kindle their own sparks in the quiet. Zeus looked to the horizon, a smile upon him. The silence of the oracle had done its work. It had turned doubt into unity, and fear into strength. And so, the last prophecy was not an ending. It was the promise of a future shaped by choice. The flame burned on, bright against the twilight sky, not as a gift from the gods, but as a mirror of mortal hearts, steady and strong. And in that light, silence was never empty again.